Thank you, Drew. Appreciate that very much. I do appreciate the partnership of this congregation and the help that they're providing me by being a sponsoring congregation for the work. Christian Evidences and so on, the whole work is, with Truth for Today, is headquartered at Harding. Eddie Clower is the principal individual who started that. And the process is for global missions. So he's promised me that they're going to translate these materials into about a dozen different languages. They'll be responsible for the publishing, distribution, the translation, those kinds of things to their mission students all over the world. And it's going to be foundational information. It's going to be information on, say, the existence of God, the inspiration and authority of the Scriptures, and the deity of Christ, which builds the foundation for all the other things that they will learn concerning the Christ, the church, the plan of salvation, and so on. And I'm happy to have a part in that and thrilled to be having a part in that, along with my work with the Warren Christian Apologetics Center and so on, and thankful that you're a part of that work as well here. You may not have even known what it was, but that's what it is. And we're also going to try to make those materials available for use in churches in Bible class programs, because I don't know of anything at all, really, in a widespread fashion where that's being done in our churches, Bible school programs. I don't think you have courses in Christian Evidences or apologetics in most churches of Christ in the world. And for that reason, we're trying to make this a broad-based appeal to start those kinds of classes for our young people. We have to start them early, too, even to preschool kids, 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds and so on, to ground them in these truths so that they do not lose them when they go off to college or they go off to any kind of educational process otherwise. I appreciate very much the invite to be here tonight. If you'll turn your Bibles to Genesis chapter 37, that's where we're going to read the story. That's going to be the foundation for our lesson tonight. In just a moment, I'm going to handle this a little differently tonight. Where'd that little step stool go? I thought since I'm so short, I might need that thing up here. I appreciated that little boys brought that out and stepped up on it, stood up a little bit. And I'm too short on one end, so if you can't see me, just tell me stand up, and I'll try to stand on tippy toes or something. One of society's buzzwords describing a very serious condition within our families is the word dysfunctional. Dysfunctional families seem to be everywhere, and such matters call for the utmost concern and care from each one of us. Especially as that's true if our family is one of those who might be labeled dysfunctional family. We're all aware of the awful cost to our children when such is the case, and the awful cost even to the church when church members and church families are also classified as dysfunctional families. The Bible records a story of another child who grew up in a very dysfunctional family, and that's the heart and soul of the lesson we're going to be talking about tonight. That one's, of course, Joseph. Beginning in Genesis 37, Joseph had a dream, actually had two dreams. So as we begin that reading down through verse 11, now Jacob lived in the land where his father had sojourned in the land of Canaan. These are the records of the generations of Jacob. Joseph, when 17 years of age, was pasturing the flock with his brothers while he was still a youth, along with the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought back a bad report about them to their father. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his sons because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a varicolored tunic, or a coat of many colors. His brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, and so they hated him and could not speak to him on friendly terms. Then Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said to them, "Please listen to the dream which I have had. For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf rose up and also stood erect. And behold, your sheaves gathered around and bowed down to my sheaf." Then his brothers said to him, "Are you actually going to reign over us? Are you really going to rule over us?" And so they hated him even more for his dreams and for his words. Now he had still another dream, and related it to his brothers, and said, "Lo, I have had still another dream, and behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars were bowing down to me." he related it to his father and to his brothers, and his father rebuked him and said to him, "What is this dream that you've had? Shall I and your mother and your brothers actually come to bow ourselves down before you to the ground?" His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the saying in mind. Now, it might seem rather depressing to study his family history today, but embedded in this story, we find the keys to learn how to deal with dysfunctional families and how to learn to live above the background of a dysfunctional family. And I rather suspect that I may be speaking to one or more such families tonight. I have no way of knowing that for sure. But I've seen this problem in a variety of different places and a variety of different circumstances all over the country in places where I've gone to preach. Long before Joseph was born, his family was just an utter mess. In fact, in the text we just read, Joseph dared to share a dream with his brothers. And, if you're just talking about something that you had, a dream of something, and, if you wanted to talk to somebody about it, would it be such a bad problem? Would it be such a bad thing to say, well, yeah, I had a dream last night? My wife has had, with some kind of medication she takes, causes some bad dreams. And every once in a while she says, I had a nightmare last night. And she hasn't had many of those lately because we've changed her medicines and so on. And so I'm thankful for that. But still, if you have a dream, don't you tell somebody about it sometimes? Is that such a bad thing? But it's hard to miss the tremendous sibling rivalry that comes out of these dreams that Joseph had. In fact, they hated him even before that and certainly after that. Rereading verses 4 and 5 now from the New King James Version, here's what it says. And you may have heard it this way stated before. When his brothers saw that his father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peaceably with him. Now Joseph had a dream and he told it to his brothers and they hated him even more. Have you ever been around someone who could not speak a peaceable word to someone else? Have you ever seen anyone like that? Heard of anyone like that? No doubt you have. And that's kind of a sad situation. His brothers couldn't even speak a peaceable word with him. And this isn't the end of the matter. This is only somewhat of the beginning. Even though Joseph's dream came true later in his life in a most unusual way, it wasn't accepted well by his brothers. It was fulfilled, these dreams were, when he was after the age of 30, so about 13 plus years later, all this came to pass. But at this particular time, it's just a dream. So there's a lot of history in this family before Joseph's dreams actually come true and his family came to understand it. But in order to see this, we need to go back in history and look at the family itself and kind of see what we can uncover about this amazing Bible family, but still a troubled family. His father was a liar and a cheat. We all remember how Jacob deceived his father in order to steal his brother's blessing. He'd already got his brother's birthright when Esau came in from the field and asked for a bowl of lentil stew because he was famished. But he also stole his brother's blessing by deceiving his father. His mother's no better since she and her sister Leah engaged in a long battle for the love and respect of their husband Jacob. Now Rachel was promised to Jacob as his wife, but we know that he was given by deceit from Laban, Leah, his oldest daughter, first, for which he had to work 7 years. And then 7 years in order to win his affections from Rachel so he could win her as his bride. Now, Leah was never able to win Jacob's life while Rachel was barren for a large number of years. And then when Rachel was finally his wife, the sisters engaged in jealousy with open adulterous relationships and open fornication on the part of their family, especially with two other handmaidens who became concubines to Jacob. Finally, when Jacob was 91 years of age, Joseph was born. He was called, in the text we've read tonight, the son of his old age. When Joseph was 6 years old, Jacob decided to take the family and leave Grandpa Laban's house. On that trip, Rachel stole the family idols, and she lied to her father about where they were hidden. She had hidden them, actually. He went after them. If he was going to find them, he was going to bring them back into servitude, or maybe even do worse. He was kind of a violent person, was intending violence upon them. The record says in Genesis chapter 31, so Laban went into Jacob's tent and into Leah's tent. He's looking for his household idols. Did you get that? Idols. They're worshiping something other than God in this family. He went into Jacob's tent and then into Leah's tent and into the tent of the two maids, but he did not find them. Then he went out of Leah's tent and entered Rachel's tent. And now Rachel had taken the household idols and put them in the camel's saddle. And she sat on them, and Laban felt all through the tent, all over the place, just felt all around, couldn't find it. And she said to her father, let not my Lord be angry that I cannot rise before you, for the manner of women is upon me. So he searched but did not find the household idols. He left thinking that he was defeated and that they weren't really there at all. But he searched there nonetheless to try to find these household idols. Now Joseph witnesses this deception. He's only 6 years of age, but he witnesses this deception. Can you imagine growing up in a family like this? Your father's a liar. Your father's a cheat. Your mother has a similar character flaw. Your stepbrothers hate you. Your mother is always fighting with his mother. Before all that long, this anger will erupt into violence, and this is the kind of environment in which Joseph was born. In Genesis chapter 34, verses 1 through 7, Shechem, who was the son of Hamor, a Hivite, raped their sister Dinah. Jacob did virtually nothing. That was kind of characteristic of him. He was a passive parent. He did nothing at all in any circumstance that he found himself in where there was trouble. He just simply let it alone. He did virtually nothing when this took place. But the sons of Jacob, Joseph's stepbrothers, were angry. They were grieved. They were angry. They were hostile. Now Shechem wanted Dinah as his wife, and he said, I want her to be my bride. So they concocted this kind of strange thing. He said, well, we're Jews and we're circumcised. You're not. You're uncircumcised. And so here's the deal. If all of you, if you will, and yourselves be circumcised, and we'll make sure you have Dinah as your wife. But if you'll see to it that all the rest of your men folk are circumcised as well, I'm paraphrasing all this, of course. But if you are all circumcised as well, then we'll intermarry with your families, and we'll work together, and we'll raise our own flocks together, and we'll do all that kind of stuff. Well, they thought this was a great idea. And so Hamor and Shechem convinced their fellow townsmen to go along with this, to be circumcised. On the third day, when they're in horrible pain, Simeon and Levi took their swords and killed every last one of them. The other brothers went in and plundered the entire area. They took their flocks, they took their herds, they took all the women, they took the children. They were acting just like Esau. They were completely out of control. Jacob protested that behavior, but he did nothing about it. And Joseph witnesses all this violence. He sees the deception, he sees the lies, he sees the violence. He's seeing all of this in his own family. Joseph had given a multicolored coat, the coat of many colors, to Joseph that he wore most of the time. That coat just was like a large billboard that screamed, favorite son, favorite son, favorite son. They hated him all the more for that very colored tunic. Then he had some dreams that incensed his brothers, the ones we read about tonight, making them hate him even more than they already did. Joseph may not have even realized that one day this incredible anger would be directed straight at him. Meanwhile, one of his stepbrothers slept and had sex with his stepmother, one of his stepmothers, and his father, true to form, did absolutely nothing about it. Let's get all this straight. Joseph has 3 stepmothers, 10 stepbrothers, 1 brother, and 1 stepsister, all living in the same house under the same roof with the same man. His father readily embraced a polygamy that was common in that day, which opened the door to jealousy and insecurity and almost constant conflict between the women. Jacob was a passive parent, having very little to do with correcting the sons and training them properly. Joseph's stepbrothers took turns being brutal and being conniving and being openly immoral and ungodly in the worst sort of way. You probably heard a statement in your time. Maybe you nod your head if you've heard this statement before. When mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. Nod your head. Ever heard that? Come on, nod your heads. Raise your hand, do something. Have you ever heard that before? Yeah. Picture this, please. We have 4 incredibly angry mamas, all living under the same roof with a man who makes them so angry, with all of the boys who are not following anything they've ever taught them, if they ever taught them anything at all. And Joseph's own mother died giving birth to his little brother, Benjamin. That's Rachel. And so Joseph and Benjamin lost the only protection they had against the violence that this family concocted on a regular basis. That's the background. Whoa. You thought you had problems, right? Nothing like this. I don't know many families like this. I hope I never meet one. This is an incredibly dysfunctional family. Top of the line. And when Joseph was 17, his father sent him out to check on the welfare of his brothers. Now, we read the first 7 verses. Would you continue reading with me, please? We're going to read verse 12 through the end of this chapter. It's incredible. It's interesting. You have read this before, no doubt. But let's go ahead and read this together. Then his brothers went to pasture their father's flock in Shechem. Israel said to Joseph, "Are not your brothers pasturing the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send you to them." And he said, "I will go." And then he said to him, "Go now and see about the welfare of your brothers and the welfare of the flock, and bring word back to me." And so he sent him from the valley of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. A man found him, and behold, he was wandering in the field. And the man said, "What are you looking for?" He said, "I'm looking for my brothers. Please tell me where they are pasturing the flock." Then the man said, "They've moved from here. I heard them say, 'Let's go to Dothan.'" And so Joseph went after his brothers and found them at Dothan. When they saw him from a distance, before he came close to them, they plotted against him to put him to death. They said to one another, "Here comes this dreamer. Now then, come and let us kill him and throw him into one of the pits." And they will say, "A wild beast devoured him." And then let us see what will become of his dreams. But Reuben heard this and rescued him out of their hands and said, "Let us not take his life." So Reuben further said to them, "Shed no blood. Throw him into this pit that's in the wilderness, but do not lay hands on him, that he might rescue him out of their hands to restore him to his father." So it came about when Joseph reached his brothers, they stripped him of his tunic, the varicolored tunic that was on him. And they took him and threw him into the pit. Now the pit was empty without any water in it. Then they sat down to eat a meal, and as they raised their eyes and looked, behold, a caravan of Ishmaelites was coming from Gilead with their camels bearing aromatic gum and balm and myrrh on their ways to bring them down to Egypt. And Joseph said to his brothers, "What profit is it for us?" Judah said to his brothers, "What profit is us for us to kill our brother and cover up his blood?" Now get this. There's no profit to us in all this. Let's sell him and make some money on the deal. That's the thinking of these guys. I mean, it's incredible what kind of a family this is. So Judah said, "What profit is it for us to kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him, for he's our brother, our own flesh." His brothers listened to him. Then some Midianite traders passed by, and so they pulled him up and lifted Joseph out of the pit and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver. And thus they brought Joseph into Egypt. Now Reuben returned to the pit. Reuben, the one who protected him from being killed, was missing for a time. I don't know where he went, but he came back and he doesn't find him. Joseph's not in the pit, so he tore his garments. He returned to his brothers and said, "The boy's not here, and as for me, where am I to go?" So they took Joseph's tunic and slaughtered a male goat and dipped the tunic in the blood. And they sent the varicolored tunic and brought it to their father and said, "We found this. Please examine it to see whether it's your son's tunic or not." Then he examined it and said, "It's my son's tunic. A wild beast has devoured him. Joseph has surely been torn to pieces." So Jacob tore his clothes and put on sackcloth and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and all his daughters arose to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. And he said, surely I will go down to Sheol in mourning for my son. And so his father wept for him. Meanwhile, the Midianites sold him in Egypt to Potiphar, Pharaoh's officer, the captain of the bodyguard. That's the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey might have said. At least it's part of the rest of the story. There's more to it than that. But all this is very interesting, to say the least. But the question is not necessarily, was that family dysfunctional? No question about that. The issue is this: how can we deal with dysfunctional families when we find them today? How can we help somebody who has that issue in their own family? How can we deal with it and live above it if we are the ones suffering from this problem ourselves? Look, we've got families that are dysfunctional, that are breaking apart at the seams. And people are leaving one another and going off to other places all the time. It's just kind of crazy the way family life is today in some respects. Now, I trust that most of you are, since this is a Wednesday night, most of you are solid citizens in the kingdom of God, but not all your brothers and sisters are that way. Some aren't. So how do we deal with this issue? Well, first of all, let's look for spiritual markers along the way. Joseph learned that Esau was coming after his father Jacob. There's horrible bad blood between the boys because he had stolen Esau's blessing. He had connived him out of selling his birthright. He's after Jacob. So he wants Jacob dead. At least that's the way we left him in some circumstances. And so now Joseph knows that there's bad blood between the two. But Jacob showed up in camp the following morning limping. He had wrestled with the Lord all night, and God finally brought peace between Jacob and his brother Esau. And Joseph hears the story, and Joseph sees that God's working all the time. And then Jacob tells Joseph that he had a dream where a ladder was up into heaven and down to the earth, and there were angels climbing up and climbing down on that ladder constantly. And it was God's way of telling Jacob that, well, there's a lot more going on behind the scenes than you might be able to see in front. I'm working all the time. And the truth of the matter is, these spiritual markers are present in everyone's life. We just need to be open to them. This is God's providential activity. He's working in your life all the time. You may not see it. Oftentimes you have to look back at it in the past, say, well, God must have been involved in this thing. It couldn't have happened any other way. That's providential activity. It's not miraculous. It's God working behind the scenes. And these are spiritual markers, and you have to look for these things. They're present in everybody's life, and you and I just need to be open to them and be aware of them in our own lives. Secondly, we need to acknowledge God's sovereign control in all things, including our own lives. Joseph had to learn this in order to effectively deal with his brothers later in his life. Now he's past 30 years of age. He's the vice president, so to speak, of Egypt. He has control over life and death for everyone, and his brothers come to him because there's a famine in the land, and they're coming to buy food, and the only people that have food are the Egyptians. And Joseph's the one in control of the food. Now, they don't know it's Joseph at first, but Joseph tells them as he reveals himself to them. This was the reading that Hunter read for us tonight. Now, do not be grieved or angry for yourselves because you sold me here, for God sent me before you to preserve life. For the famine has been in the land these 2 years, and there are still 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvesting. God sent me before you. And listen, this is verse 7. This is so important to biblical history. God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant in the earth and to keep you alive by a great deliverance. 2 words: preservation of the seed line that leads to Christ, deliverance from Egyptian slavery. Those 2 things are God working behind the scenes in His sovereign control. Now, therefore, it wasn't you who sent me here, but it was God. And He has made me father to Pharaoh and lord of all his household and ruler over all the land of Egypt. Genesis 45, verses 5 through 8. Then later, when Jacob dies finally, the brothers think that Joseph's going to get even with them. They even concoct a story. I think it's a story. It might have really happened. They said, your father told us to tell you Well, did he or didn't he? But your father told us to tell you that, don't take things out on us for what we did. But in Genesis chapter 50, his brothers also came and fell down before him and said, "Behold, we are your servants." And Joseph said to them, "Do not be afraid, for am I in God's place? As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good in order to bring about this present result, to save many people alive. So therefore, do not be afraid. I will provide for you and your little ones." And so he comforted them and spoke kindly with them. Do you remember back in the reading that we had earlier, verses 4 and 5, and the earlier part of Genesis 37, where the brothers could not speak peaceably with Joseph? They couldn't have a friendly word with him at all, under any circumstances. Genesis 50 verse 21 says, he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. Notice the strong contrast between that and his brothers, who could not even speak a peaceable word with him earlier on. That was before Joseph even shared his dreams with them. Now, they need his help, and Joseph has control, and they're afraid he's going to exact vengeance on them because they'd been that kind of people themselves. But that wasn't in Joseph's heart. God had been dealing in Joseph's life all along in order to preserve his chosen people and to deliver them from bondage. Joseph was able to see the spiritual markers in his own life that I'm asking you to see in yours. He also was able to see God's sovereign control, and he understands that God was the one responsible for sending him there in the first place, so that he could be in a position to help his family, which is exactly what he did. Number 3, we need to choose personal responsibility. Viktor Frankl was a man who was profoundly influenced by Sigmund Freud and several other psychotherapists. He was himself a psychotherapist. But he was humiliated and tortured and dehumanized in Nazi prison camps. He was in a concentration camp, and he witnessed many people in those dire circumstances who just sort of gave up, curled up in a corner and gave up and died. And so he came out and he wrote a book that's a classic. If you don't have the book, you might want to read it sometime. It's called Man's Search for Meaning. And he shared his important discovery with the whole world. He said, and I quote, "The last of all great human freedoms is to choose one's response at any given set of circumstances," end of quote. I'll read it again. "The last of all great human freedoms is to choose one's response at any given set of circumstances," end of quote. Is that not what our Lord did from the cross when he said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they're doing," as his lifeblood is dripping to the ground just feet away? The easier and the most popular route is to use your circumstances as an excuse for dysfunctional patterns, foolish behavior, and at times personal sin. We live in a society where we are victims, or at least people think of victimhood. They're always victims because they blame everybody else for their circumstances, and somebody's trying to pick on me, and I'm the poor, pity poor me victim. That's kind of the way that people sometimes are prone to think in the society in which we live today. And the truth of the matter is, Joseph didn't let himself become a victim. He wasn't one who lived that way. Victim behavior is rampant in our society. We must not let our God-given value be reduced to some sort of pitiful victimhood in our own lives. We have so many people in our society, and even in the Lord's church, who simply can't find anything else to do but blame other folks. Went through that the other night, and all the ones who passed the buck in Scripture started out in the Garden of Eden. Adam, what have you done? The woman you gave me, it's her fault. Eve, is that true? It's that serpent, Lord. And people have been passing the buck ever since to someone else. I'm urging you to take personal responsibility for your own choices. That's exactly what Joseph did. That's exactly what we all do. We're responsible for our own choices regardless of how others around us act. It doesn't matter how they act. It only matters how you act. It doesn't matter how someone else acts. Fourth, we need to take a long-range look at life, because our actions affect our children, our actions affect our grandchildren, our actions affect our spouses, and most importantly, our actions affect us personally. So when we're thinking about this kind of a situation, we need to learn from the Bible these things that we shouldn't do, and we shouldn't live this way, and we see the awful results of behavior that is like we've been looking at tonight. Joseph stands out as a marker of a person who was different, who lived in a different way. And fifth, we need to remember that God uses trials and temptations to purify and strengthen our character. Peter writes, "Beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery ordeal among you which comes upon you for your testing, as though some strange thing were happening to you. But to the degree that you share the sufferings of Christ, keep on rejoicing, so that also at the revelation of his glory you may rejoice with exultation." 1 Peter chapter 4, verses 12 and 13. Don't be surprised if you're tried and tested, and if people come after you and try to cause all kinds of difficulty for you. Don't be surprised. That's normal. The author of Hebrews says, "Furthermore, we had earthly fathers to discipline us, and we respected them. Shall we not much rather be subject to the Father of spirits and live? They disciplined us for a short time as seemed best to them, but he disciplines us for our good, so that we may share his holiness. All discipline for the moment seems not to be joyful, but sorrowful, and yet to those who've been trained by it, afterwards it yields a peaceable fruit of righteousness. And therefore strengthen the hands that are weak and the knees that are feeble. And make straight paths for your feet, so that the limb which is lame may not be put out of joint, but rather be healed." That's Hebrews chapter 12, verses 9 through 13. Do you know any dysfunctional families? Maybe it's your own, I don't know. But I hope you've been able to learn that no one needs to live that way. They just don't. And it never depends on how other people act. Please hear me. It depends on how you act toward them and others. Famous passage, you know it well, or you should if you don't. Treat others the same way you want them to treat you. That's Luke 6, verse 31. We call that the golden rule. It's the practical outworking of the second greatest commandment: love your neighbor as yourself. Treat others the way you want them to treat you. He didn't say treat others the way they treat you. That's a get even mentality. He said treat others the way you want them to treat you. Do you want them to be kind to you? Then be kind to them. You want them to be merciful to you? Treat them with mercy. You want them to love you and care for you? Love them and care for them. You want them to speak kindly to you? Speak kindly to them. They may not do any of those things to you. That's not the point. The point is, you start with you. And if you love those, Jesus continues, who love you, love those who love you. What credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. Even your dogs do that, don't they? If you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners do the same. Luke 6, verses 31 through 33. That's what God calls us to do and God calls us to be. And the life of Joseph is a perfect test case in how to live better in this world and not like the rest of his family. Now, you may be here tonight and perhaps something's been said that's caused a responsive chord in your life. I don't expect you to say you're a dysfunctional family. You probably aren't, but you might have some needs of a spiritual sort that we can help you with. We'd be delighted to pray with you and for you if you have any spiritual need that we need to know about. We don't know what's going on in your heart unless you tell us. And if it's something that we need to talk about and you need to talk with us about, we would love to do that tonight. If you're here tonight and you've not been baptized into Christ to start that walk with Jesus, what on earth could be holding you back? Why wouldn't you do the right thing? That's all we're asking you to do tonight, is do the right thing. He that believeth and is baptized shall be saved, said Jesus. He that believeth not shall be damned. You know, the hard part about that is to get people to actually do it. We're not asking you to do something that's wrong at all. We're asking you to do what our Lord loves you for and wants you to do. And what everybody here loves you for too. If you need to respond in a public capacity tonight, song's been selected. Please, if you need to come, would you come now while we stand, while we sing?